And a warm welcome back to TVB News. The police chief says there's no evidence to suggest mainland law enforcement took a mainland tycoon out of Hong Kong against his will. Stephen Low assured the public that the investigation is continuing. Kier Long has more.
Xiao Jinhua, the billionaire founder of Beijing-based Tomorrow Group, was reportedly taken from his hotel in Central about a week ago and brought across the border to Shenzhen. Media reports suggested Xiao was taken by mainland law enforcement as part of an anti-corruption drive. Speaking on a radio show this morning, Commissioner of Police Stephen Low said there were no signs its mainland counterparts were involved. He added that the force is taking the case seriously and is continuing its probe. That's despite Xiao's wife requesting the case be closed. Tomorrow Group posted a notice outside its office in Beijing saying it was business as usual and that it hasn't been asked to help with any investigation. The police chief also spoke about the force's upgraded security efforts. Low said 900 police officers will be recruited in light of worsening global terror threats and that anti-terrorism officers already begun patrolling the city's rail network. The force maintains that there's no intelligence to suggest that Hong Kong is a terrorist target, but it needs to be prepared and strengthen its frontline power. As for the 20th anniversary of the handover, Low could not confirm if state leaders would be visiting his city for the celebrations. But he stressed the force will be ready for the handover anniversary, as well as the upcoming CE election in March. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
The police have arrested 4 mainlanders in connection with a burglary attempt at a house in Sai Kung last night. The suspects are aged between 24 and 37. All of them are two-way permit holders from Guangxi. The police say they met resistance during the arrest, and one officer was taken to hospital for minor injuries. Officers also say they seized weapons and tools. Police Chief Stephen Low said there is no sign the suspects were linked to local gangs.
The police have begun a 5-day crackdown on jaywalkers across the city to curb traffic accidents. Offenders may be liable to a maximum fine of $2,000.
Best think twice before dashing across the road before the green man appears. Determined to cut down on traffic accidents, particularly those involving the elderly and young students, the police today began a citywide crackdown on jaywalking. Common pedestrian offences including disobeying light signals, crossing within 15 metres of a pedestrian crossing without using it, and climbing over a curbside fence or through a central reservation onto a carriageway could land you with a fine of up to $2,000. During the 5-day crackdown, officers will issue summons against offenders. Before today's road safety operation, officers from the regional road safety teams handed out leaflets around different locations, urging people to comply with road traffic regulations. But the message may not have reached Mong Kok yet, a notorious jaywalking hotspot, where pedestrians could still be seen crossing the road before the traffic signals changed. The jaywalkers were, of course, reticent about telling us why they were in such a hurry. According to police figures, there were 3,421 pedestrian casualties and 80 fatalities last year. More than half of the fatalities were aged 65 or above. Compared with 2015, the number of pedestrian casualties fell by 92 and deaths dropped by 1, while those aged 65 or above killed in traffic accidents fell by 6.
More overseas news now, and voting is underway in state elections in the Indian state of Punjab. It's the first in a series of state elections to test the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who took power in 2014. They come after his surprise currency decree in November that removed India's 2 largest currency notes from circulation. It led to weeks of chaos and protests as people waited to get their money back in new bills. Modi said it was meant to curb tax fraud and corruption. Critics said it was a blow to the economy and caused enormous hardship for Indians. While the 5 state elections won't decide if Modi remains in office, a loss would be seen as a serious blow to his political image.
Myanmar's government has vowed to investigate allegations of atrocities against Rohingya Muslims after the United Nations human rights watchdog issued its investigative report yesterday. In its report, the UN accused Myanmar security forces of mass killings and gang rapes of Rohingya Muslims. The world body also said these amount to crimes against humanity and possibly ethnic cleansing. A Myanmar presidential spokesman said the country was deeply concerned and promised to investigate the allegations through an official commission led by the vice president. French authorities say they've identified the man who was shot and wounded at the Louvre in Paris yesterday as a 29-year-old Egyptian. Police say the man was carrying 2 machetes and shouted "God is great" in Arabic when he attacked soldiers outside the historic art museum. He arrived in France late last month after getting a tourist visa in Dubai. He was seriously wounded. Paris police are now trying to determine if the suspect was working alone or on instructions. They searched the apartment he'd rented and conducted several raids around the city in connection with the attack. OK, Tony, what's going on in sport?
Well, we got Tiger Woods struggling in the desert and we got Davis Cup action. But first, the NBA. And Houston's James Harden scored 42 points in the Rockets' overtime win over the Chicago Bulls. It was also a special night for China's Yao Ming, a former Rocket standout. Jameson Wong has more.
The Houston